the dark side of Hollywood and how some power players allegedly use their positions to prey on young aspiring actors.
You talk about Hollywood, I mean, where is it really? I mean, it's kind of, there's a sign up there on the hill, but it doesn't really exist. It's this kind of nebulous thing that people apply to anything.
When I came over here, I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
The first time I really came over. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
A lot of research on it, and according to all the research, it was way worse than that.
One of the most disturbing problems in our world today, eradicating this crime, is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
In a world where celebrities are spilling the tea on the shadowy secrets of Hollywood, Mel Gibson recently spilled some scalding hot gossip by putting the spotlight on the film Sound of Freedom.
The first step in eradicating this crime is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
This cinematic gem, inspired by true events, unraveled the daring tale of rescuing children from the clutches of illegal human trade. Let's just say Mel didn't hold back in unveiling the unsettling truths lurking within Tinseltown.
And I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people.
The revelation didn't just expose Hollywood's bias and reluctance to acknowledge this powerful narrative. It was like pulling back the curtain on a scandalous Hollywood drama. Media companies tried to hush up the film, attempting to sabotage its message from reaching the masses. But oh boy, the box office numbers spoke louder than the industry's whispers in hush-hush corners. Despite being handed a dreaded blacklist, Sound of Freedom was like that A-lister who refuses to be snubbed at the red carpet. It boldly challenged Hollywood's status quo and struck a chord with audiences who couldn't get enough of its powerful message, especially when it came to the plight of vulnerable children. But wait, in a shocking twist, Mark Wahlberg pulled back the curtain on a nefarious network operating behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. This dark web delved into the murkiest realms of and illegal human trade. Mark didn't hold back, revealing a culture of silence and intimidation that kept stars from exposing the elite pedophilia industry.
I think it'll continue to open people's eyes.
In a move that had Hollywood buzzing, Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg joined forces to break through the Tinseltown facade. Their mission? To dismantle the veil of secrecy shrouding Hollywood's elite pedophilia secrets. It was a jaw-dropping partnership that set the stage for even more A-listers to spill the beans and expose the darkest corners of the industry. But hold on to your seats because the tea doesn't stop there. With the Sound of Freedom film making headlines, it's impossible not to recall a 2015 documentary that also aimed to unveil Hollywood's seedy underbelly. An Open Secret, the documentary directed by Oscar-nominated filmmaker Amy Berg, made its debut in an out-of-festival screening at Cannes in 2015. The film, which boldly declared itself as the film Hollywood didn't want you to see, delved into the harrowing world of SA within the entertainment industry. Drawing parallels to Berg's previous work on Catholic Church in Deliver Us from Evil, this documentary unveiled a disturbing narrative of exploitation and silence.
They would go to the auditions and so forth to try to pick the ones that they wanted.
At one point he said, you know what, why don't you just take off your clothes? Take off your clothes and let me see what you look like.
An Open Secret painted a grim picture of a P-ring that thrived within the glamorous confines of Hollywood. The documentary began with the brave testimony of former child actor Todd Bridges, best known for his role as Willis in the popular sitcom Different Strokes. He shared, "It was unsettling because I had myself gone through that. With that show, I was reliving that whole thing all over again." The film meticulously detailed how managers, agents, publicists, and directors lured teenage boys with dreams of stardom into their web of abuse. Some even gained the trust of the victims' families before subjecting these aspiring actors to SA. Concerned parents first became alarmed when unauthorized headshots of their sons appeared in circulation. Parties hosted at opulent mansions served as venues for the alleged exploitation. At these gatherings, the boys were plied with alcohol and drugs before being coerced. An Open Secret also exposed the disturbing practice of making child actors enter hot tubs naked to entice investors. These young talents were told that their acting careers were contingent on their compliance with the demands of directors and investors. Evan Henze, who was only 11 years old when his manager, Martin Weiss, began assaulting him, shared his harrowing experience in the documentary. Henze noted the lack of support from film festivals and the broader Hollywood community for the film's promotion. He suggested that both the filmmakers and the Hollywood establishment bore responsibility for this lack of support. Despite internal disputes complicating its release, the documentary faced rejection from major film festivals in Los Angeles, London, and Toronto, with no reasons given for the snubs. This rejection highlighted the industry's reluctance to confront its dark secrets. Registered still found employment within Hollywood, as evidenced by actor Brian Peck's case, who had previously worked for Nickelodeon and alongside director Bryan Singer on X-Men and X-Men 2. Peck was convicted of 2 counts of lewd acts with a child, but had gone back to working within the industry. Why was he still working on a studio lot when he was a convicted questioned Matt Valentinus, one of the film's producers. This critical inquiry underscored the need for greater accountability and oversight within the industry. The documentary sought to bring about essential changes. The filmmakers advocated for stricter background checks and the implementation of mandatory minimum sentences for convicted offenders. Moreover, an open secret aimed to support the victims of abuse, preventing them from succumbing to chemical dependency, alcoholism, and further psychological issues. All profits from the film were channeled into a foundation established to provide necessary support. Producers Gabe Hoffman and Matt Valentinus viewed the film as the first step in a long process. They hoped that as more people gained access to the story, it would lead to greater scrutiny of the industry and its connections. "We're not saying or implying that any of those famous people have done bad things," said Hoffman, "but we're just saying there are multiple connections which are much more than casual, which should generate questions." Given the depth of the problem uncovered during the documentary's research, Hoffman believed there was much more to uncover. "This is not the end. This is the beginning of this situation," he asserted. An open secret may have been a catalyst for change in an industry that desperately needed it. As the dust settled after the release of An Open Secret in 2015, it became increasingly clear that Hollywood was not willing to confront its own demons. The documentary had lifted the veil on a dark underbelly that had persisted for far too long, yet the industry's response was far from adequate. Despite the shocking revelations and first-hand accounts from victims, the entertainment behemoth that was Hollywood appeared determined to sweep the issue under the proverbial red carpet. The film, which had promised to expose the industry's darkest secrets, was met with a deafening silence from the very institutions that should have been at the forefront of change. One of the most glaring examples of Hollywood's resistance to change was the rejection of An Open Secret by major film festivals. Los Angeles, London, and Toronto film festivals, renowned for celebrating the art of cinema, inexplicably rescinded their invitations to the film. The reasons for this rejection remained shrouded in secrecy, leaving many to wonder whether influential figures within the industry were pulling strings behind closed doors to protect their own. This blatant disregard for the documentary was indicative of a larger problem within Hollywood, a culture of silence and complicity that allowed operate with impunity. While the #MeToo movement had begun to shed light on SA and abuse in the industry, the revelations brought forth by An Open Secret were met with a disturbing apathy. Registered such as Brian Peck continued to find work within Hollywood, raising serious questions about the industry's commitment to protecting its most vulnerable members. The fact that individuals with convictions for heinous crimes against children were allowed to roam freely within studio lots was not only a failure of moral responsibility, but also a damning indictment of the industry's priorities. The producers of An Open Secret, Gabe Hoffman and Matt Valentinus, had hoped that the documentary would serve as a catalyst for change. They called for stricter background checks and the implementation of mandatory minimum sentences for convicted offenders. Their plea for greater accountability and oversight within the industry fell on deaf ears. It was evident that Hollywood, with its obsession with fame, power, and profit, was not ready to confront the uncomfortable truth that lay at its core. The film industry, which had the potential to be a platform for change and a voice for the voiceless, had instead chosen to turn a blind eye to the suffering of countless victims. While An Open Secret had managed to shed light on the dark corners of Hollywood, it was only the tip of the iceberg. The documentary had shown that there were multiple connections and stories waiting to be uncovered, but the industry's reluctance to confront its past and present made it clear that the battle was far from over. Meanwhile, fans have commented on all the exposés being released about Hollywood. One fan wrote, "More and more names and faces coming to light. Incredible how they get away with this so easily. Lets you know Hollywood is real." A second fan added, "You don't get rich and famous for nothing. You have a price to pay. They're all sick." And a third person wrote, "These get off because they have hush money. So sad." Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.